Hi guys, my name's Carrie Jane. Welcome back to my channel, and in this video I will be talking about the 3 personal year number. I have a lot to say about this year. I have a positive aspect and a negative aspect that I want to talk about when you're living on the light side of things and the dark side of things. Whatever state you're in when you're moving through this part of your 9-year cycle. I also want to begin mentioning what goes through my mind when I'm doing a person's chart and I'm looking at their personal year number and what age they're at, because different parts of your life throughout your entire lifespan are going to mean so many different things when you enter into a particular year number. And so, to me, from what I've studied so far, that's especially important to look at with the 3, so I'm going to go into that. I also want to talk about the focus of this year and how to best use it to your advantage. So, the 3 year is all about communications. In fact, if you have a 3 life path number, you are the communicator. It's about your social life. It's about your self-expression, your creativity, however way you like to express that, whether it be through being in a room with a lot of people, being a performer, or being, if you're like me, being in your room alone and writing. Either way, it's a form of self-expression. Imagine that your soul or you has a social body. Like sometimes I often mention the mental body, the emotional body, um, the spirit. Imagine that your social self has its own body. This is when you're going to have to put this aspect of yourself into practice. When you're living on the lighter side of things, when you're going through this phase and you're not going through the dark night of the soul or any such thing, it should be very light. In fact, it should be a very fun year. You should feel an element of play in this year. And so this is one of my favorite years. I can't wait. For me, that's next year, and so I'm very much looking forward to going through this period of time, and you should too. If you are, in this phase, if you're about to enter this phase, be excited, because it's a time where you get to use a lot of the talents that you don't usually get to put into play for whatever reason that you have in your own life. So I would say, with my understanding of the 3, that a sense of humor is very important for this year, as well as a belief in magic. Things might seem new to you. Things might seem like a new beginning. Not like in the 1 where you had to make something out of nothing. It's more like you have a lot, but now, for some reason, you have something to work with. All of a sudden, you feel like it's a new chapter, and there's several different things to pick up and play with. Like, if I had to pick a visual representation of the 3, it would be all of a sudden you have these like very separate trinkets, and you get to have fun with them and be like, well, what if this scenario plays out, and what if that scenario plays out? And you get to interact with these elements. A lot of times this is people in your life, hence the social aspect of this, hence the communicator aspect of this. All of a sudden you have social circles, and you become a person, especially if you're going through this in your youth, where you're letting go of old routines or old anything and stepping into a new phase where you're having fun. You're maybe you don't usually like to go out to parties, or maybe you don't usually like to go out in a social setting with a group of people, but now all of a sudden you are, and it's working out. And it's very lighthearted, and it's just a lot of fun. I love the three. Just imagine for me for a moment the different parts of life that one tends to go with and how the three might interact with that. Imagine you're like 13 years old and you're in a three life number. You might be coming into your own, so to speak. You might be starting to develop your own first social circles, and you're kind of coming out of your shell a little bit, and now you're totally, kind of defining what those social circles mean to you. You're expressing yourself in a way that you never have before, and it's kind of defining your identity because you're so young, and because of this particular phase in your whole entire lifespan that you're moving in. And so it's a very pivotal moment. I think I was 15 or 16 when I went through a three year, and I very much remember it being a lot like that. I was still an introvert, but I didn't care about being secluded anymore. I was just like, for the fun of it, let's just go to this thing and see what happens. Or for the fun of it, let's just talk to that person. I'm curious. I want to know what happens when I say this thing to them. And so you kind of flourish, I guess, socially in a way, and you express yourself, you have fun, you play with it. And so that's that phase. And of course, it doesn't have to just happen in, your younger years. It could happen at any point for you. But I'm just saying that that's a common thing that can happen with a 3 year when you're younger. Now, if you will, move to another chapter in your 20s. Say they're a man who is suddenly kind of taking on an entrepreneurial step, and they have like a clientele, and they have lots of relationships now that will get them into things professionally. Say that they are just learning a lot of new things and are becoming very steadfast and are coming out of their shell that way, and are um, basically making the first steps of their career, that. And again, like I said, with the last thing that could happen at any point in your life. In an adult, I see a reawakened passion for creativity. Perhaps you start writing again, because you have a very busy life. You spent the last decade just taking care of your kids, or taking care of your husband, or your job, whatever you're married to, essentially. Could be anything. And now all of a sudden, the objective becomes your happiness, which is, I need to say, applicable to any point in your life. The three becomes the pivotal moment where your focus becomes your happiness. But especially if you're, in your 40s, and like I said, this is what's going on in your life, suddenly you have reawakened passions and you're exploring your creativity again. You said, I really like dancing when I was a kid. And then you start doing that again. Like, this is a great time to pick up things that made you happy and allowed you to express yourself. Now, say you're in your golden years, I see it as, someone deciding to finally get out of the house and, take a class with other people that they love being around. And it could be something creative, or maybe they just like the social aspect of it. I just want to paint this picture because, as I said in the beginning, out of all the numbers, like, I can see how this might affect a person differently, very, very differently in every single phase of their life. I don't know why. I don't know why this number, not the other numbers, but that's just how I've picked it up. Now, I've talked about like the lightheartedness of this, how it's focused for your happiness, but I also took some notes on the ways in which this number can bring out the darkness in all of us, and I'm going to read those to you right now. So, not following one's heart can signify the darker side of the three, which includes depression, sorrow, and coldness. Being hyperactive in this year. Within the dark reflection includes gossip, lying, enemies, and rejection. Confronting the social body in the way of the three may conjure self-consciousness. Perhaps you're being, pushed, you feel at least you're being pushed into social settings in your mind or your heart. You're like, I really should be going and doing these things, but all of a sudden, having that desire, you're suddenly overcome with self-consciousness. One may try to cover this up, or any of these emotions up. You may try to cover up your depression. You may try to cover up anything and put on a happy face just to keep up with appearances. And everyone knows that this just leads to more problems. It's just, if you try to cover everything up, it's going to get worse. If you try to push it aside, it's going to get worse. And so if you want to truly be happy, you gotta face at it head on. You gotta face it. And another thing that I read about the three is the darkness that comes up can often be a result of living in the past, because for whatever reason during your 2-year you were not able to process it. You did not let yourself feel the emotions that you need to, what have you. Something happened, I couldn't tell you, but all of a sudden now you're just in the past, and when you're in the past, how could you possibly be happy? Perhaps you're not so much in this dark aspect of the three, but you're not used to focusing on your happiness. Perhaps focusing on yourself in this way produces some sort of guilt. I also have something down for that. I took a quote directly from Christine Delury. She said, "We are living in a world that is rife with misery and suffering. You may wonder if seeking joy is appropriate or realistic in this day and age. You might be filled with doubt. Guilt will tell you this is impractical. Take happiness, your right to exist as you want to exist, seriously. The three urges you to reach out to others in an optimistic, heart-filled manner, and does not ask that you be immersed in self-interest." That's the distinction that it makes. It's not about just being all about you all the time and you're just so interested in yourself. It's not that at all. It's just for a change, instead of trying to figure out how to, trying to figure out how to do the right thing all the time for other people or the world. Just being like, what would make me happy right now? That's simply just that. And I also wrote, think of what you can contribute to a situation, not what you can take out of it. And that's when social circles and social interactions become very interesting and become very fulfilling, because you're no longer in this state of mind where it's like, well, what am I going to get out of this? Really, I'm just going to get stressed. I'm just, this person's going to say this thing and it's going to be annoying. Like, don't think about that. Just bring yourself and see what happens when yourself is fully there and you contribute to the atmosphere. Okay, now before I wrap things up and go into some other things as well, I want to say the quotes that I picked out for this year. What we vividly imagine, ardently desire, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. And this quote is from Cezanne, and you can figure out the pronunciation for me. The next one is, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I will not reason or compare, My business is to create. And that is right. Your business is to create, and that is from William Blake. The next one is, there is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. And that's by William Shakespeare. So truly though, ask yourself this year, what makes you happy? What makes your eyes light up? What gives you a reason to live and wake up in the morning? Now, this is true for the 3 life path, but if you're entering into this 3 stage, this also applies to you, especially if you're in the positive and the light side of things for the 3 vibration. You amplify your inspiration to other people. It kind of becomes contagious. Like when you're happy and in this space of lightheartedness and being open, it's contagious, and people are also inspired and they like to be around you, and you have this impact on people that you may not have had before. And so it's not just something that is a complete service to yourself, but you can also spread this joy and this inspiration to other people. So definitely take that into consideration this year. So there's a part that I read in this book too that I took word for word because it doesn't explain it. Nothing explains it better than this. She said, consider the nature of your social activities and the feelings that they trigger in you. What's your idea of an enjoyable time? Is there any imagination or creativity involved in your social interactions? Or is it the same old boring routine? Are you living your own life or following the crowd? Are you seeking friendship or approval? Don't lose your individuality amongst the atmosphere that you find yourself in, essentially, is what I got from this book. She also said, create a look, a form of expression, or a way of life that pleases you. You may discover a talent you didn't know you had. Pursue new interests with passion. So, there, like with every single year, I think there's more that I could say about it, but I've already talked a lot. And so I just kind of want to wrap it up by summarizing the 3. And I honestly think that the best way to utilize the 3 energy is to focus on what you want. I don't know if that is the best advice in life or in any other phase in this cycle, but it seems that based on what I have researched and what I've experienced with the number 3, it is if you focus on what you want and you focus on your happiness, only good can come out of it. If you're just stuck in all the things that are dragging you along the bottom of life, I have this ridiculous image of my head of being an anchor and just dragging along the bottom in the mud and the sulfur and the disgustingness. You're not going to get out if you're stuck there. You're just not. Focus on what you want. Find something outside of yourself where you can finally apply these natural born talents that you have. Social interactions aren't easy for everyone, but everyone is an artist. In my opinion, every single person is an artist. You just have to find your talent and put that into use this year in however way that you want, because that's what it's about. It's about what you want this year, and don't feel guilty about it, and don't bring yourself down just because you are confused about the impracticality of it all. So comment below if you have any questions, because like I said, there was a lot that I could have said that I didn't in this video. Please share your feedback if you are going through this year. You know, what is it like for you in this particular phase of your life and your circumstance? Please like, and of course, always subscribe and share. And next week I will be doing the 4, so stay tuned. And I love every single one of you, and I hope you have a lovely week.